What happens when you take a guy from Northeast who's never hunted before and put him in Texas on his first hunt? You're about to find out on Gun Talk Hunt.
Hey, I'm KJ, dedicated lifelong hunter here. If you got an interest in all things hunting, you're in the right spot. Whether chasing quail across the plains of Oklahoma or in pursuit of elk in the backcountry of British Columbia, you'll always find me on the hunt.
All right, welcome into Gun Talk Hunt. I'm your host, KJ, and the awkward fella sitting next to me is Mr. Corey Beaudreau of Smith & Wesson. Welcome in.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, I have so much questions I have to ask you.
Let's start from the top.
Okay, let's start from the top. He makes me feel real awkward because I don't know exactly what he's going to do or say. But I know we've been friends for a long time, and ever since you got to Smith & Wesson, and never a hunter.
Nope.
I mean...
So let me break that down for
yeah.
you. I grew up in Connecticut, and my mother... So my dad was indifferent to guns. I grew up... Okay. Actually, my parents met skydiving in the 70s. So I grew up...
wild.
Which is... Yeah, it is wild. I grew up at a drop zone, right? So like I would go to the drop zone on the weekends and watch my dad jump, or I was a competitive gymnast. So I was constantly training. Or
hold a second. You've never told me that you were a competitive gymnast.
Yep, right up.
Do you still got it?
I can still do backflips and whatnot. Which like
how old are
I'm
you?
43.
Oh,
so like when I go to a
you.
trampoline park with the kids, like
you show out.
I throw it down. Yeah, it's
so
it's
you're the
epic.
dad at the trampoline park.
I'm that
sits
dad.
there and goes out, and
100%.
balls out,
Yeah.
and is like doing
backflips
and twists,
bouncing off the walls and doing all that. Yeah. I'm that guy. I'm the guy that constantly gets yelled at by the safety guys too. Like, hey, you can't do a double front. And I'm like,
watch
well,
me.
I just did. So what up? But that was basically my youth was, competitive gymnastics. And then when I turned 16, I started skydiving. So I lived at the drop zone on the weekends. I missed my best friend's graduation party because at the drop zone, we had a plane there for the first time that could hold like 20 something people.
Oh,
in it.
yeah.
And I was like, sorry, dude. Like, sorry.
Really?
Like, yeah, I was it was a dick move, but I had you had to, you know what I mean?
You don't get that opportunity every day.
No. So growing up,
graduate again.
Yeah, it's whatever. It's high school. But growing up, my mom was very like anti-gun. She was a big like proponent of like no toy guns and stuff. So I was obsessed, right? Like I really wanted toy guns, like no Nerf guns, no nothing, right? So I like my squirt gun that I had as a kid was this, and I found one on Amazon and bought it again. It's this blue puppy dog. It was made by a company in Sweden that was part of that pro no gun like for kids. So it was like you dip the blue puppy dog nose in this. We had this Tupperware bucket that we'd always use, and draw it back, and then I'd run to the next neighborhood, which was like an acre or two away, where the kids would all be playing with the super soaker backpack things and whatnot. I'd get there and I'd
squirt.
Like squirt. One shot, right? And then they would just turn and just and then
you'd be drenched.
Run my ass back and dip it in and go again. And so like
you could have brought the bowl of water. Like
I didn't think of that.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So I wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed either. But so growing up, very, very, my mom was very into. I would always ask my friends for birthdays, like, give me a Nerf gun, get me something.
Yeah.
And she
Did you
somehow
have a hiding spot for it.
No, I never got one.
You never got one.
So I think I was 15 or 14. My brother is 6 years younger than I am. And my dad came home one day and saw my mom was teaching him how to crochet or maybe cross stitch or something. And my dad was like, no, not having it. So he went out and bought us a pellet gun. But he was super safe with it. Like he had a trigger lock on it. Only he had the key. So we could only shoot it with him. But that was my extent of guns, right? So like I never had a firearm until I turned 21 and was in college. And like I just told you, I got a Walther P99 because I watched the Bond movie Tomorrow Never Dies. He does that cool shoot house scene. Like so I was sold. But that was my entry into the firearms world at 21 as a college student.
While doing it, so going back to the whole adrenaline dump, you seem to be very much an adrenaline junkie. Does that come with skydiving? I mean, like so many times, and you're just like,
eventually So it
gets my rocks off. I guess
you start. I mean, it becomes in the beginning. Yeah, it's a adrenaline overload, right? Like I made my first skydive at 16, and after I landed, like I went home, and I passed out. Like I fell asleep. Like I was just like my body was done.
Really?
Yeah. But then like jump number 2 was totally different. I actually remembered a lot of the sensations. I could actually see stuff and remember it. And I was actually like cognizant, if you will. And then after that, like I had almost 3,000 jumps before I finally retired because I have 3 daughters and my wife was like,
so you did retire. You're done.
I'm done. I'm out. Yeah. But
like legit done or
legit.
like,
Yeah. I'd rather start flying again. That's another thing I did.
oh geez.
I know.
See,
But-
an adrenaline junkie who hadn't even hunted yet.
I guess. Yeah, that's fair enough.
I mean, you're an adrenaline junkie.
I mean, I also base jumped.
And okay, so we're getting a little
So, yeah,
further
we're
into this.
pushing- yeah.
You're pushing those limits.
So if I do something, it's like all in full afterburner or I'm not doing it. Right. So same thing with the firearms. So I got into firearms. I now work at Smith & Wesson. Like
Yeah.
it's all in or I'm not doing it.
It boggles my mind to sit here and look at like how far you've come from. I mean, because a lot of parents who their dad's indifferent, and especially like their mom's anti-gun, like you really kind of never go back to that space unless you're a little bit of a rebellious kid, which you seem to be probably.
Apparently, yeah.
I mean, yeah. Then you're just like, you know what? Whatever they're saying, I'm going to do the exact opposite. Which come on into our open space. We've got a great following. So let's get into. You finally went hunting.
So, yeah. So I had never gone hunting, and it wasn't because I had any like adverse, like I didn't think anything negative about it. It's just I grew up skydiving and
That was
gymnastics,
it.
and like that was my world. Firearms became my world, but it was more like the competitive shooting type stuff, steel action. Like I enjoyed doing that, like pushing myself there. And
And
kinda
you
getting that
are
competitive.
a very, very good shooter.
I'm a
Like,
decent shooter.
No, you are very good. I've seen you shoot.
Fair enough.
You just take your compliment and move on.
Fair enough. I hate you. So the hunting, my first hunt came about because at our grand opening,
Yeah.
Jerry brought a bunch of his friends with him, and his friend Chad has a private 6,000 acre deer ranch, like those.
Right.
And his father, I guess, so his
In
father
Texas.
owns in Texas.
Yeah.
Like we could see with my drone when I put it up, you could see the Mexican border. Like we were down.
That's
way
way
south.
south.
Big, tall fence.
Did you fly into like McAllen or San Antonio or?
Yeah, I flew into San Antonio
Okay.
and then drove about 2 hours.
Oh wow, yeah, you were way
Jeep
down.
Gladiator.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. Like just getting off. So you pull off the road and then you go through a gate and then it was like 10-minute drive.
Yeah.
On like off road, right?
Jeez.
And then you go through another gate and then
Yeah.
like another 10-minute drive. And then you
Yeah.
finally pull up and this cabin they have was beautiful.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
So on
I
one
saw the
side,
pictures. It's
on one
nice.
side, the family who owns the ranch has like their family quarters. And then the other side, there's like 3 guest rooms and a kitchen. And then you
Okay.
go outside in the back and it's a beautiful patio,
Yeah.
grill, brick grilled, like,
outdoor
outdoor kitchen.
Yeah.
We went and cut down some, there was a mesquite tree that fell. So
Oh,
we
yeah.
cut a bunch of branches off of it and mesquite coals and cooked steaks every night. And like, oh, it was amazing.
Dude, I want it to be fall again, and I know everybody out there is the same way. It's like, man, how many more months do I got until I have to withstand this? But we're in turkey season now, so that's okay. But this is you get to hunt the ground that Jerry Michelik gets to go hunt.
Correct. So Chad met Jerry through competitive shooting.
All right.
And then Chad just randomly took a shot in the dark and sent out an email to him. It was like, hey, like I got a deer ranch. Would you like to come hunt? So Jerry and Chad became very close. They're like,
Well, yeah. Jerry says, "Hey, I'm in."
so Chad told Jerry, like, if you want to invite someone. And so Jerry's like, hey, would you like to go deer hunting? And I was like, I've never done that. I don't know if you really want to invite like a novice. Like this is
Absolutely.
your time.
That's the
Like,
perfect time to do it, though. Like if you
So-
think about it, if you have those opportunities,
but I felt like I
a
was
hunt
jumping
that.
into the big leagues, right? Like I'm going with the best shooter in the world.
Yeah.
And Chad is no joke. Like Chad
Oh
is
yeah, he's
really
I mean,
good.
If they met on the competition circuit, I'm sure he's legit too.
He's awesome. So we went. I flew in there and followed Chad back to the ranch, and so it was a management hunt. So they had
Yeah.
some monsters there, like, and we saw them too, right? So there's javelinas running all over the place.
Oh, you shoot javelina?
I didn't.
Oh,
I know.
that would have been awesome.
I know.
Could you have? Like,
So Chad, I guess Chad
Or is he
kind of has
kinda
a
managing-
soft spot for javelinas. He had
Oh.
one as a pet. It was a
Oh,
baby
no
that he
kidding.
named. So But then I guess it might have turned on his mom, so they had to put it down. So he said I could shoot one, but I had to clean it myself, and I was like, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. It's a small rodent.
So like day one in a deer stand, and my wife was like terrified of me being in a deer stand because she's like, how are you, like, I'm very ADHD, right?
Yeah.
She's like, how are you gonna sit there still for a long time? But dude, I was dialed in, man.
Really?
I was scanning constantly, just waiting for it. Like, I was perfectly still. Quiet.
So that sun's like peeking up. Was your first hunt in the morning or in the evening?
It was in the morning first. So we saw a bunch of big 10-pointers.
And you're like, can I shoot that one? Can I shoot that one?
Can I shoot it? Can I shoot it? And the cool thing about the hunt was I got to bring one of the experimental 1854s. So
really?
It was one built by the engineers.
Pre-production?
Yes.
Cool.
So it was hand built by the engineers, right? And we put a cheap Vortex scope on it. I don't remember what I think it was a 3.
Like a Strike Eagle or something.
It wasn't anything fancy.
Yeah.
But like I'm glassing through that thing and I'm just like jonesing. Like, really? This is awesome.
Okay, so let's compare this, being the adrenaline junkie you are, because I have my thoughts on it. How does that compare to like jumping out of an airplane?
So I will say, like, jumping out of an airplane for me is actually kind of a peaceful thing. It's not.
See, but that's how hunting is for me.
Yeah. So then it's very similar.
Yeah.
Like it was. There's a rush to it, of course, but it's not the same as that first rush, right? Like it wasn't the same as jumping out of a plane every time is not like the first time you do it, where it was like that adrenaline overload.
Yeah.
The first time I base jumped, I got that adrenaline overload.
Okay.
Like I landed, my skin was tingly, like I could feel everything. I heard my body going by the rafters on the bridge. Like I was like electrified. It was so dangerously addicting, like that it was a good thing it ended after that day.
Right.
I did 3 jumps and that was done. Like,
and then you were done.
Yeah. But that same level of like instant hook, like that instant addiction, like I'm very that type of personality. So the first day in the blind, I was like, oh no, because I could feel it. Like I was like
coming on,
holy cow,
feeling.
Like this is going to be a new thing for me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Chad took me. Chad was our guide.
Okay.
So he put Jerry in a stand and then put me in a stand. Jerry didn't have any luck.
So were you by yourself
I
in
was
the stand?
I was with Chad.
You were with Chad. Okay. Because I was like, man, that's a lot. That would be a lot of stress to sit up there and go, okay, what's a management deer? Like,
yeah. Well, because I didn't know, right?
So
so I saw that giant buck first come out and I was like, oh God, dude. I'm looking at it through the glass.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is huge. And these things are big.
Yeah.
Like I had no real idea. The only deer I ever saw are like on the side of the road or, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I was, and they had the protein feeders there.
Yeah.
They got, so like it
everything
was wild.
See, that's how, like, when I go, like, Ryan won't let me drive when I'm driving through like Texas. Like he won't let me drive because like around all the ranches and everything, I'm like, oh, did you see that? Oh, did you see that? Like I'm just looking because it's an addiction for me.
Yeah.
And I love seeing animals because there's no two the same. There's always something a little bit different about each one of them.
Yep.
And I just love seeing them. And so where do you go from seeing like a deer that you can't shoot to a deer that you're potentially going to take?
So it was day 3 and it was the evening and we were actually getting ready to leave the stand. So there was a couple 12 pointers out there and then there was a 10 point and we didn't really see any doe out there.
Oh, really?
Even though it was rut.
Yeah.
Which I learned all about that while I was there too. Cause again, I didn't know any.
So how many, like you had to been asking a million questions a minute.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like, hey, why is he doing that? Hey, why are they stopping here? Well, why are they coming from that way?
Yeah. And they kept pointing out all the scrapes too. Like, oh, there's a scrape, there's a scrape, there's a scrape. And I was like, what are you guys talking about? And then they finally stopped and showed me. And I was like, oh, so this is like them swiping left on Tinder or whatever.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, sure.
I've never thought about that.
Well, that's what, I mean, that's my understanding, right?
Yeah,
like they scrape and then the doe will say, yeah, I like it. And then they come back. And so
meet you here. Meet you at this spot.
Call me here. But we were getting ready to leave the stand. So I had actually emptied the 3 shots that I had loaded into the lever gun.
Yeah.
I had packed my ear pro. Like we were getting ready to leave. And then all of a sudden Chad goes, oh, what the hell's that?
Really?
I was like, what? And he goes, right over there, right over there. And so then I glassed it and I was like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He goes, no, that's 8. I was like, oh, and he's like,
so
oh,
that was game on.
He's a big 8. And I was like, okay. He's like, are you ready? I'm like, no. He's like, load. And so I'm fumbling the rounds in, right? So I put 3 in, and I rack it, and he's like, okay, do you have a shot? And I was like, then now like my adrenaline spikes because now it's like we went from calm to leaving the stand as quietly as we could to it's on. Like it's going down right now. And the sun was like down. We were like in dusk point.
You were in the last 30 minutes of
we're like technically with the aviation, it's like civil twilight. The sun has gone down, but you still have light.
Yep.
So I line up the shot and I'm like, it's like a 160-yard shot with a 44 mag. And that's kind of, we're pushing it a little bit.
Yeah.
So I held a little bit high and right. And I slowly eased that trigger back. And bam, it breaks. And it was like a lightning bolt hit the end of my barrel, the muzzle flash, because it was dark. And I didn't have my ear pro in. So immediate.
So you're like, huh? You're like, what?
He's like, oh, did you hit it? Like, I can't. I'm like, what? Like, I was like just shocked and awe.
Oh,
and
my gosh.
I named him Chuck. Chuck. So again, not hunting, right? I have no idea how I'm going to react to this. I've never, like, I've shot squirrels with like a 22. That's not hunting, right? So I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to react. I'm nervous.
How you're going to process it.
Am I going to cry? Because I've seen people cry. I've seen all the different myriad of reactions. I was trying to figure out how I'm going to handle this. And
probably had a big shit-eating grin on your face.
I did.
Ear to ear.
Chuck takes he jumps, takes a couple steps and stops and hangs his head. And Chad's you got him. He goes, do you mind if I just drop him for you? Like, go ahead. Like,
please. Yeah.
So he had a 300 blackout. 700 with a can on it, and thank God because my hearing was already gone. And he just put the coup de grace, and it just dropped. And then we went and found him. And now it's getting darker, right?
Oh yeah.
So we took the trophy picture, and I'm like still in kind of shock, right? Like
that happens, and it happened so quick.
It was so
you didn't
fast.
Have time to
like
process
I had already
the shot even.
I had already come off of like, okay, nothing's going to happen tonight. It's another dry hole, if you will. And then it was like, oh my God, like. I'm still in shock. So like the picture of me holding it in the field, I look like a deer in headlights. The two of us both look great, right? We're both like
you and Chuck.
Chuck and I just sitting up there. So then we winched him into the back of the off-road vehicle, and then we went and picked up Jerry. And Jerry also didn't get anything, so he was like frustrated. He's like, dang! And I was like, check the back, man. He's like, oh! And then he immediately got all excited.
That's cool.
So then we took him back and we processed him, and so then I'm still like trying to, we're gutting him, and
how was that process for you?
Well, Jerry was like Johnny on the spot. He started doing everything because we wanted to also go to bed so we could get up early, right? So he's just filleting and doing his thing, and they're kind of like looking to see how I'm going to react. And so I named him Chuck, and they were like, "Well, that's kind of weird," but. And then I made up a song because we took his gut sack and dumped it for the coyotes. And we were singing. I was singing Chuck's guts in the middle of the street, Chuck's. And Jerry just looked at me. He's like, what is wrong with you?
What is wrong with you?
I was like, I don't know. Like,
that's just how you deal with it. Yeah, natural high. Like,
But so then we gutted him and put him in the freezer and everything else. The worst, most
disappointing part. And then here comes I know this part. I know what you're going to say.
Is... I let Jerry take the meat. I wanted deer jerky because Jerry makes the best deer jerky on the planet.
That's what you've told me. So Jerry, if you're listening to this, bring me some.
He shows up to shot, and I'm like, "Oh, do you have Chuck jerky for me?" And he's like,
"So about that."
Yeah, the grandkids ate it all. I was like, "My first deer, and the grandkids."
Yeah, I mean, it did not go to waste.
Yeah.
But you would have liked to taste some of those rewards.
Aside from
because that is,
they made me take a chunk of the liver, like bite.
Oh,
they did the whole ritual thing. Yeah, they painted the face with blood and made me take a bite of the liver. Oh, it tasted disgusting.
Really? I don't mind liver. Maybe not raw liver.
No, it was raw. It was still warm.
Yeah, that's. I don't think I can get down with that.
No,
and especially like the white. That's one reason I don't save a lot of whitetail liver. Because a lot of them are bad. They're not very good.
Yeah, I think Chuck might have had a drinking problem.
Yeah. he had down at his local watering hole every night.
Sclerosis.
Yeah. Well, that's the bad thing about that story is you not getting to like fulfill like the whole circle of life. You taking it home to the family and say, I killed this and this is the meat and this is why you do this. Because that's a great little educational point. Because that's how I did with my kids. Like when I bring it home and we're eating that, I'm like, this is what comes of hunting. Like I didn't have to go to the store. I know exactly where that deer came from.
Yep.
And that's unfortunate, but lucky for you, like you could actually do Oklahoma next year.
That sounds
so you should do Oklahoma next year. Get yourself an Oklahoma deer, and I don't have restrictions on. I just have age class restrictions. You can shoot a management deer if you want, but you could. There's potential there for good deer. Like
you don't actually have to twist my arm.
Like seriously,
there's a whole bunch of us at Smith & Wesson that all from the Northeast. So my good friend Joe Vega started hunting. With the launch of the lever gun, and now he's hooked.
Is he hooked?
Oh my God. He's like, we joke around. I thought he was going to put an ad on Facebook Marketplace for like, if you have a petting zoo, I'll come hunt him. Like whatever you need. Like he is just like that movie, The Hunter. Like I'm nervous that's where
has he applied at the local zoo?
I don't think he should.
His hunting application in at the local zoo.
Yeah, he is.
Do you have an application for employment? No. Hunting application.
I want to get that one. Dave O'Connor, who was on with us earlier, his first hunt was with the 1854. So there's like 3 or 4 of us that did our first hunt with that gun before it hit production.
That's awesome. That's a cool way to do it. And were you the first person to put meat on the ground with the 1854?
Vince was. Vince got the first one.
Vince was.
Yeah.
Son of a gun. Dang it,
He
Vince.
got, what are those? Like, they look like a goat, but with the Satan horns. You know what I'm talking about?
An Audad.
Yes, he got one of those. I think that was the first.
That was the first thing shot with an 1854.
And he got a big buck, too.
Really?
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me.
But his Audad looks pretty crazy in his office.
It's unreal, I bet.
I know.
Good for him. Good for you, Vince. Screw you. So what takeaways would you say for anybody thinking about hunting?
So, one, open your mind. There's a lot of the anti-hunters and the crazy pro hunters. It's none of those extremes are real. It's somewhere in that middle.
Yeah.
It's a normal thing since the beginning of dawn for mankind. Like we've been hunters.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely okay.
Yeah.
I loved it, to be honest with you. I thought it was a beautiful experience in a weird way to say that, right? I felt more connected with Chuck. I took his life, but like it was a beautiful thing. Like and that sounds weird to say, but it really was. Like he's going to be mounted in my office and he's always going to be a part of my story now. Like that beautiful whitetail fed Jerry's grandkids.
I don't know. And to do it with such a guy with just impeccable character as Jerry.
Which was, so the cool part about the hunt was, so we only got one.
Right.
Chuck was the only one we got during that week.
Oh, really?
So that was day 3. After that, Chad, who'd been having some craziness with his business, was like, hey, I just want to chill at the lodge and do, like, he likes to build models like I do.
Right.
He's like, I just kind of want to work on this model. Like, you guys can keep hunting. Is it okay if we're like, yeah, go ahead, man. So then Jerry and I started just going out.
Oh my gosh.
And
what's he like in a deer stand?
So I thought, again, my ADHD, like sitting still was going to be a problem. Homeboy's over there like playing with his suppressor, like bouncing stuff around. And I'm like, Jerry, you were worried about me? You were like...
That's why he can't hunt in an open air.
He
stand
was a blast. But like, I was like, definitely did not have to worry about me. Yeah. Although I did admit, so a doe did come out and it was like a doe that we could take and I missed. Yeah.
How close?
So I held high and right again, but it was...
How far?
It was way closer in. So it was maybe like 75 yards.
So you think you shot over?
And I sent it right in front of her.
Oh.
So we re-zeroed the rifle and it was entirely me. I just got too excited and just ganked it.
So now you went from the highest of highs to like the lowest of lows. But I would say the lowest of lows would be if you hit it and couldn't find it.
That would have been
the lowest of lows.
I felt then you're like, better knowing that I didn't hit
it. Clean miss. And that's always the best. That's the best when you're like, I know that I missed that deer. You go over and you check and you're like, yep, verified. missed. So, but yeah, awesome, dude.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
Not on the air.
Okay, perfect. We'll take it off the air. Smith & Wesson, smith-wesson.com. I don't know why the guy is holding on to smithandwesson.com, but he needs to relinquish that control and get it to you guys instead of having the dash. But I think everybody knows it's smith-wesson.com. So go check them out. The 1854, which we've got here in the office, and I absolutely love that gun.
Oh, it's a tack driver.
Dude, it really is. And for you guys to venture into that foray of lever guns, which you guys are kind of coming full circle because you guys kind of originated, the design.
Which is wild. Like, because I'll admit, like, I had no idea. Like, I've seen drawings of the Volcanic, but I didn't really think about the fact that it's a lever action pistol. Like, the whole concept was so ahead of its time, like a caseless cartridge. Like, it was a wild gun. But then when that conglomerate of Smith & Wesson that started in Connecticut folded, that's when Henry left and started his. That's when Winchester left and started his. So that's where they went and branched off with the lever action. And then Smith & Wesson started again up in Springfield, Mass. And that's where all of our revolvers then started launching from.
And now they're in Tennessee.
And now we're in Tennessee.
Thank goodness you guys are in Tennessee. My gosh.
I love Tennessee.
Oh, I know. I've heard about all the guns you finally got to buy.
Tennessee is just such a beautiful state.
It really is.
Like the rolling mountains,
dude,
the
and
people are super friendly.
Is good. Their deer hunting is good.
So on my way in, I drive through some pretty rural areas, and I've seen some monsters too. Because now that's the other thing is I'm like you.
Now
I'm constantly looking everywhere on the road, and I see them everywhere, and I'm like, gosh.
Can I hunt that?
Yep.
Can I hunt that? That's the thing I'm asking all the time. All right, guys, that's Corey Beaudreau of Smith & Wesson. As always, you guys, keep those muzzles pointed in a safe direction and always be on the hunt.